And now it's switched to that camera. All right, welcome, welcome, welcome. I know everyone wants to hear that. Hopefully you can hear me. We had some technical difficulties, but can everyone hear me? Can I see some love on the other end to make sure we're working? Make sure things are coming through. Let me check and make sure. All right. So just so Cedric didn't miss it, we got welcome. You know what time it is, except this time it's live. What's up? So excited to be with you. Apologize, but this is what happens when you have an amazing tech team that tells a 52-year-old, oh, it's easy, right? You can figure it out, right? This is definitely what I'll feel a little older. I'll have to go and do some extra reps in the gym in this morning or this afternoon or this evening, but it's working. We're here. Life is good. So this is all about being live. So what questions do you have for me? I always have information to talk to you about, but this is really about answering any questions. If you haven't listened to this week's podcast, we did this right afterwards so we can sort of tune into it, but I'll give you a little preview. What are you focused on? Right? What is your focus? Now, here's the ironic part of that question. So many people struggle with it, but it is the easiest question on the planet to answer, and here's why. Just look around. What you've created in your life is what you focus on, right? So if there's a lot of good stuff happening, right, that's what you're focused on. If there's a lot of bad stuff happening, right, that's what you're focused on. If you're a security engineer making 150K, that's what you're focused on, right? If you're a world-class Ciso making $2 million, it's because that's what you're focused on. And I know it sounds crazy, and yes, you do have to do some work here, but what if you start focusing on what you really want? What if you really start focusing on being whatever that position is that you want, whether it's world-class Ciso, making $1 million, $2 million a year. By the way, that's not unusual, right? If you're getting in the right company with the right bonus plans, right, that's actually feasible to do. So, all right, we got some questions coming in. What do you think we need to focus on the most of being a Ciso? So first and foremost is, where would you like to be in a year? So it is June 23rd, 2023. It is a year from today. What position would you like to be in? Where would you like to be? It might be in, and once again, it might be, Eric, I just got my dream job. I know several of you that are in my program. One of the things we are masterful at, right, is getting you that dream job. We've had people that were struggling for 2 or 3 years, work with me for a couple of months, and boom, they get that dream job. And they want that job for 2 or 3 years. They want to get the experience segment on their CV. So it might be continuing where you are. It might be a whole new job, a whole new company. So I'm going to sort of put it back on you, is what you should be focusing on as being a Ciso is what you want and where you want to be a year from today. If right now you're a manager, a director, and you don't actually have the Ciso title, and you want to be a world-class Ciso for a Fortune 500 company, then what you should be focusing on is reading business books. Have you read Blue Ocean Strategy? Great. How many times? That's the trick, right? The trick with books, and nobody teaches you this. I don't know why they don't teach you this in school, but the trick with a book is you have to read it multiple times to really get the message. Right? If you read a book once, you'll get about 10% of the value. If you read the same book twice, you get more value. If you want my trick, and I know once again, people think I'm crazy, but I'll give you my trick. And it's very, very powerful. When I read a book, the first time through the book, I read each chapter twice. So I'm going to read chapter 1 and I'm going to reread chapter 1. Then I'm going to read chapter 2 and reread chapter 2. Then I'm going to read chapter 3, reread chapter 3. I'm going to read chapter. So essentially, I'm repeating each chapter so it's really fresh in my mind. And then I go through that book once. Then I flag what are the really powerful chapters that had the most learning opportunity for me. And then I go back a second time and reread those. And then here's the key part. Reading does nothing if you don't take action. So what changes are you going to make based on what you've read? So I'm now doing a new approach where in a month, I read, technically it's one book, but I've read it 4 times. So I'm reading 4 books in a month. It just happens to be the same book. And that just to me is so much more powerful. So that's what I really ask yourself is, where do you want to be? If you are a current CISO, then what you should be focused on, the number one thing existing CISOs must focus on is communication with executives. How frequent do you meet with the executive team? How often do you brief the board of directors? You should be part of the inner circle. In every company, you have your core executives, CEO, COO, CFO, chief legal counsel, auditor, and that's inner circle. They get together informally on a regular basis. They're constantly popping into each other's offices. They're talking, they're having conversations. They very rarely have planned meetings because they're always talking and conversing. Your goal as a CISO should be to get in that inner circle where you're part of the business conversation on a daily basis. So that sort of answered that piece both from long-term and short-term. What is the eligibility criteria academic for becoming a CISO? Here's the cool part. There isn't one except the limitations you place on it. A lot of people have been quoted with this quote, have been credited with this quote. I guess quoted with this quote. That's, come on, Eric, get with it. Credited with this quote, but here's what it comes down to, and it's so true for being a CISO today. You ready? Whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're probably right. Becoming a CISO today is all about how you show up during the interview process. That's what it comes down to. Now, yes, if you're, I'm just being honest, if you're 19, you don't have any schooling, you don't have any work experience, it's probably going to be difficult for you to get a CISO position because you really don't have any experience, education, or anything else. But here's the cool part. The more experience you get, the less education matters. Your education is really important for teaching you discipline, for teaching you study habits, for teaching you practice. Your education is really good for getting you the first job and maybe getting you the second job. But if you have 8+ years experience, even 5+ years experience, and you can talk the talk and you show up to the interview and you know the business, you speak business, you understand how the business works and operates, and you're speaking numbers and finance in their language, I can almost guarantee you they could care less about your education. So don't make it a problem. It only becomes a problem when you make it one. And I've seen this where I'm coaching folks and they're acing the interview and it's going great. And then because of their own self-doubt and limiting beliefs, they actually go And I know you've probably noticed I don't have a bachelor's degree. And you know what happened in that case? The person said, "Oh, I didn't notice, but now I did." Right? Don't shine a light on your weaknesses, right? Shine a light on your strengths. Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're probably right. It doesn't matter unless you make it an issue. Focus on knowledge, expertise, and delivering on the job, and they could care less about the education. So you shouldn't either. This is a great one. I get Cedric. What's your favorite source for information security news to stay up to date? Now, this answer is going to be very, very bizarre, but I'll just be honest with you. It's you. It's my clients. It's all my coaching. It's everyone that I work with. So I actually, and I know this shocks a lot of people, I don't actually spend a ton of time listening, watching, following the news in the morning, because the stuff we're talking about, the stuff that I need to know, the stuff that you need to know, we need to know it before it makes it to the news. We need to know before it gets out there. So the way I find out about things is by interacting with my peers and my clients and my folks, because guess what? If there's an issue or a problem, it's going to come up in conversation. It's going to come up in knowledge. The other thing that's very bizarre, but I'll give you the answer, Cedric, is the way I find out is I wait for Fox, CNN, CBS to call me. Because if it's a hot cybersecurity story on most of those news channels, I'm one of their top 3 or 4 go-to people. So I actually wait for them to call me. And then my assistant says, "Hey, Eric, you just got a call from CNN or Fox. They want you on in 10 minutes on topic X." And then I start researching, calling, and validating it. So it's one of those things that if you build the right network and you have the right folks, that's really going to be the best source. That's really going to be the best way to learn about that. But that's how I learn about most of that. And then I'll go off and research those topics. but I just spend my time interfacing and working with people. And then the critical news components always come out. So we got another question from Brian. My biggest challenge is putting a likelihood percent to a particular risk. How do I identify a likelihood percent? For example, if I'm evaluating the risk of ransomware attack, how do I know that likelihood? Now, I'm going to give you 2 different answers. The first one is going to sound like a joke, but it's really not. You have a lot more experience in this area than you realize. You have a lot of knowledge and a lot of expertise, and your instinct and gut is going to be right more times than not. Make it up. There's not a correct answer. This is one of my favorite discussions when I work with new entrepreneurs. I help new startups, new entrepreneurs, and the question I always get is, how do you determine the price of a product? Like, how do you determine the price of an offering? And it's funny because these people think that these companies sit there and spend all this time. The answer is they make it up. But because they have expertise and knowledge in the area, they tend to be right. But what we think is making up is actually more right than not. So just honestly, ransomware, based on your expertise, your knowledge, you working in the field, you seeing what's happening, right off the gut, do not think, give me an answer in 3, 2, 1. What is the likelihood? I would say 85%. Right? For an average company today, I would say the likelihood on average, now it could change based on vector, size, and other factors, but if you ask me across the board for companies, the likelihood of a ransomware attack would be 85%. Now, my guess is every one of you listening You probably didn't say 85%. But did anyone say 0? Did anyone say 15? Did anyone say 30? I bet you all of your answers were somewhere between 80 to 95 or maybe 70. So we're within 5 to 10%, which is really what matters. It doesn't have to be exact. So I just urge you on that, Brian. Don't overthink it. Right? It's not a mathematical problem. There's not one right answer. If I go in and say, what's the quadratic equation and the differential analysis of 37852, there's only one correct answer. And there's a lot of wrong answers. But in this case, this is not a mathematical problem. This is a qualitative best guess on your experience. So go with the number. The second answer I was going to give is look at the coverage. If a lot of companies and a lot of people and a lot of entities are talking about ransomware and a lot of folks are paying the ransom and we're seeing big issues and big challenges out there, then the number would be higher. Another way, if you're like, Eric, I really don't like you, just my gut, because you're still building that up, do a quadrant approach. Is it quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, or quadrant 4? And what I mean by that is it 0 to 24%, which is quadrant 1? Is it 25 to 49%, which is quadrant 2? Is it 50 to 74%, which is quadrant 3? Or is it 75 to 100%, which is quadrant 4? And then pick a number in the middle. So to be honest with you, that's what I did. When you asked me the ransomware, I said it's going to be quadrant 4, which is 75 to 100. So I picked the number 85 in the middle, and that's where I came up with my 85. So trust your instinct, trust your gut, because I'll tell you right now, it's right. It's almost always going to be right. So we got GT Eric. I'm a lead security engineer at a fairly large firm and want to become a Ciso. I feel my public speaking and confidence is a little lacking. How do you think one should tackle this? So GT, 2 questions. Why? Why do you think that way? Is there actual evidence to support that your public speaking is lacking? Is that a true statement? Or is it just something you haven't done a lot of? Is it just something that you haven't done a lot, so that's why your confidence is down? Either way, my advice is simple. Do more of it. The way you get better at anything is by doing more and more and more of it. People go in and go, Eric, you're a natural speaker. You just have that natural ability. No, I don't. I will show you some of my first times I'm on stage. I kid you not. I kid you not. One of the videos of one of the first times I gave a keynote address, no exaggeration. Hello and welcome to this talk. My name is Eric Cole, and I'm going to talk about cybersecurity, because in cybersecurity, there's actually 3 key points you need to know about. You need to know about risk, you need to know about vulnerabilities, you need to know about threats. And when you talk about risk and threats, don't know what it is. I'm watching this once. Somebody showed it to me, and I'm like, okay, dude, take it off fast forward. And they're like, no, dude, that was like regular speed. And I'm like, no, really, like, show me the normal. They're like, no, dude, that's how fast you used to speak, right? From New York, it was quick. So it was one of those, the way you get better is by doing it over and over and over again. So GT, what I suggest to you is start doing what I'm doing. Do a weekly stream live. Now, it's not staged, but it's a starting point. It's a more comfort for you to get started. Start doing lives. Start doing videos. Start volunteering to go on stage. Here's a great part. We are coming out of the pandemic. More and more conferences are going live, which is awesome. But here's the issue. Because they haven't done live events for 2 years, they lost their cadres of speakers. So let me explain how these big events work. Prior to COVID, they had their list of folks. And every year they would take the top ones who did really good and they would ask them back. And so they had their cadre. So getting on a new stage prior to COVID was not easy because they were booked. You had to do smaller sessions. There was ways of doing it, but it was not the easiest because they had it locked in. But because nobody went on stage for 2 years and a lot of people stopped and they lost that cadre of speakers, I'm getting told all the time by these big conference venues, we can't find enough good qualified speakers. And now here's a special one. In the beginning, your goal is to improve your skill set. Your money is not important here. If you're willing to do presentations and keynotes for free or for a very discounted rate, you are a very hot commodity in the market. So start researching, spend an hour a day or 30 minutes a day. And I'm very big on scheduling. People go, oh, but Eric, I don't have 30 minutes. Well, wait a second. You don't have 30 minutes a day to invest in your future? You're going to tell me that you can watch Netflix. I have nothing against Netflix, by the way. I know they're going to start coming after me because I always pick on Netflix, but I really have nothing against Netflix. But you're telling me that you can watch Netflix for 1 to 2 hours every evening. But when I ask you for 30 minutes, you say you don't have time. 30 minutes a day, spend researching conference speaking events. And you can even hire somebody, but in the beginning, you don't need to do that because they're going to charge you. But my recommendation to you, GT, is get on stages. Get on as many stages as possible. And I'm just going to be honest with you. The beginning, you're not going to be that good. None of us are. But the more you do it, the more you listen to feedback, the better off you'll get. My other recommendation is watch a lot of keynotes on YouTube. Just look up graduation ceremonies. They usually have really good speakers, and you'll start looking at and seeing the trends and the patterns, but get on as many stages, and that's how you're going to build up that skill set. Blazin, running my goal is to get into critical infrastructure security. If I can get an entry, today I'm joining an open conference to meet the cybersecurity team in Ciso. True, I feel like the Ciso is down the road for me. So I think what you're asking, Blazin, is that you want to get into critical infrastructure and you want to get an entry-level job. Awesome. Apply. Here's the cool part. There is a shortage of jobs in critical infrastructure. There is a shortage of entry, mid, and senior level positions. I know a lot of these big companies can't find qualified candidates and they'll train you. So do you have a list? My recommendation to you is, what are the top 30 companies in critical infrastructure that you would like to work for? Make that list. Then start reaching out to every one of those companies. Start applying for jobs, start submitting your CV, start stalking people that work at that company on LinkedIn and start asking them questions. Say, hey, I'd love to work at your company. Do you have any suggestions for me? Do you have any suggestions how to get into critical infrastructure? Remember the rule. I always get people coming back going, oh, Eric, I don't want to bug people. I don't want to be annoying. I don't want to be frustrating. The rule is simple. If they don't file a restraining order against you, you're good, right? So if you get to the point where you're bugging somebody enough where they're like, dude, if you continue this, I'm going to file a restraining order. No one's going to do that, by the way. Then you should stop. But otherwise, people want to help you. So I'm challenging you, Blazin, get that list of top 30, 40, 50 companies, start applying for jobs, and start stalking everyone at those companies on LinkedIn and start asking for help. asking for advice, asking for details. And you would be amazed of how quickly you're going to get responses. Now we'll get Cedric's now getting into the working out stuff, right? We're not getting to the pumping up. You recommend Jim Stapani for workout, any specific training from him to take when you start training? Jim is one of my favorite folks that I recommend. Favorite program of his, of Jim Stefani. It's an intense program. It's a 6-day-a-week program, which is what I recommend for folks. But it's called Shortcut to Shred. He has a couple shortcuts. He has shortcut to size, shortcut to mash, shortcut to shred. To me, is the best one of teaching you core working out strategies. The way it works is you do 2 splits. So you do chest and tricep one day, you do legs and shoulders another day, and you do back and arms, biceps another day, and then you throw abs in there. So you basically cover the entire body in 3 workouts. And the first workout, you do heavy sets, focus on muscle isolation. So you're going to do bench press, shoulder press, leg press. Then the second workout of the week, the same split, you're going to work out each body part twice. You then go in and you do lighter. So now you're going to do flies and curls, but now you're doing 15 to 20 instead of 8 to 10. And it's a great way to see how your body responds. It's a fun workout because you're hitting it hard and then you're hitting it light and you're mixing it up each week. So that would definitely be the one that I recommend for starting on. That is Jim Stefani's Shortcut to Shred. Is a great program. And then only other thing, and this is Eric, not giving any medical advice here. I'm not a medical doctor. If you want to build a habit of working out, Cedric, you have to start with 7 days a week. So what Jim Stefani does is it's 6 days of workout, 1 day of cardio. So you're in the gym every day, but you're just doing cardio. What I actually do, and it works for me and I love it, I do cardio every day with my workouts, and I just repeat his workout every 6 days. So I do a 6-day workout. So let's say I start Monday, I finish Friday. I finish Saturday. Sunday, I start the next week. So now I go Sunday through Friday, and then I start the next week on Saturday. So I actually don't do the cardio day because I interface cardio in. And to me, having 48 hours to rest works great for me. Listen to your body, but here's my general logic. If you're working out only 4 or 5 days a week and you're taking 2 days off, what message are you sending your mind? It's okay to take a day off. So let's say you go, I work out Monday through Friday. I do not work out on weekends. So you're training your mind. It's okay to take 2 days off. And here's the problem. When it comes to Wednesday and you've been up all night with one of your kids, you have a busy day at work and you're tired, and you're like, I'm going to skip today. What does your mind say? It's okay to take a day off. Because you've trained it, it's okay to take a day off. So you take off Wednesday. And then you get back Thursday and Friday, you get through the week. Then Monday, now the following week, Tuesday, you're tired, you're exhausted. You know something? What does your mind say? It's okay to take a day off. So you take Tuesday off. Then you take Thursday off. And the next thing you know is you're not working out anymore. If you need to build a habit, you have to do it every day. Now, once you build it, if you then want to do that you can. But I will tell you, for as long as I can remember, I have not taken a day off. I have not been injured. I have not had issues. I have not had problems. So once again, do what works for you. I'm not giving you medical advice in any way, shape, or form here. But just remember habit building. If you take days off, it's going to be much more difficult to build a habit than if you don't. And I'll give you one last trick on working out. And this sounds crazy, but it's an amazing motivator. Commit to working out every day. Give yourself a 6-month goal. Do you want to build muscle? you want to lose weight, whatever it is. And this is something new that I started doing, but it is so, so powerful. When you start a new goal, I do 6-month commitments in my working out. When I start a new goal, I pick a date 6 months from when I start, and I book an appointment with a fitness photographer, and I pay them up front. And here's the mindset. If you know that you have to remove some clothing and get pictures taken in front of a photographer in 6 months, and you're going to show those pictures to your friends and family, are you going to be less or more motivated? A lot more motivated, as opposed to picking a 6-month goal that's random, and whether it happens or doesn't happen, there's no outcome. I'm very big with rewards, or in this case, punishment, right? So do things that you have an incentive for wanting to show up and work out. As you can tell, I'm excited about all aspects of that. So that Cedric, you can reach out if you want some more details on that. So Brian, I meet with the CEO every other week. Woohoo! All right, Brian. But by the way, I'm gonna urge you. I know you're gonna be like, come on, Eric. That's amazing. Most CISOs, it's mainly once a quarter, if that. So every other week is great. I would just say, what can we do to provide so much value that we make it every week? Remember, I'm always going to push you for more, but I want to stop and just say, Brian, that's amazing. So sell it. That's a huge win. You have provided enough value. Think about this, that your CEO is willing to meet with you twice a month. You are in an elite class, my friend. That is amazing. So I want to celebrate because that's a huge win. But then I want to push you, right, to get even more elite. So how much more value can you provide to get every week? But now you did have a question there. So I give them a likelihood of an attempted attack is 90%, but a successful attack is only about 5% due to our mitigating controls. Awesome. That's how you want to do it. You want to get this mindset. We are going to be attacked. It's going to happen. But what is the likelihood of success? And what is the likelihood they get in? Now, the only slight tweak here, Brian, and you're doing great, so I really don't want to mess with it, but the only slight tweak I would make there is define success. Because I would argue, based on the little bit I'm seeing here about how you work and operate, that in that 5% case, if they did get in, success means they did get in, you didn't prevent them. I'm guessing you would detect them within 48 or 72 hours. Is that correct or not correct? So the only thing I would add there is, yes, success means you didn't prevent, but then what is the likelihood of detection? Right? How quick will you detect? So the only thing I would add is 90% chance of this happening, 5% chance that we don't prevent it, but a 99% chance that if they do get in, we will detect it within 3 days. That would just be the final piece I would add, and is the prevention and detection. Yes, you didn't prevent it, but how quickly are you going to be able to detect it on the system? All right, so GT, I see there you're definitely some fear. Excellent, excellent. Oh, good. I'm glad people are getting some great value out of this. I'm just seeing if there's other questions in here. So, okay, so Trevor, I will push back a little bit. Trevor said, who said you need to be good at public speaking to be a CISO? So let's go there. I want to pull the string because it's an important lesson here. Trevor is absolutely right. To be a CISO, you do not have to be good at public speaking. I know lots of CISOs that are not great at public speaking. However, I would argue if you want to be a world-class CISO, if you want to be the best of the best, if you want to be the person that everybody wants to work at your company, then yes, you do need to be good at public speaking. So if you want to be a CISO, you don't need to be good at public speaking. If you want to be a world-class CISO, you need to be good at public speaking. So it's the difference. You want to be a good CISO or world-class? Because a world-class CISO needs to be able to get on stage, share, and motivate. And I would argue that a world-class CISO needs to do thought leadership. They need to provide knowledge and expertise and share with others. So I do agree that it's not a requirement to get a CISO position. But once you have that CISO position, if you want to become world-class, you do need to be good at public speaking. And just to make sure that I answered, GT, your question correctly, because Trevor brings it up. If you're a world-class security engineer now, and you want to get a CISO position, it's good you identified public speaking as a weakness. However, that's not, as Trevor points out, and I'm glad he did, going to limit you from getting a CISO job. The number one criteria from security engineer to a CISO position is, can you speak and understand business? The biggest problem, and I hear this all the time, is when security engineers interview for their first CISO position. They are talking technical and not business. They are talking tactics and not strategy. They are talking problems and not solutions. So if your focus is on just becoming a CISO, public speaking is good, but you need to really focus on the business. Read the books, understand business, and be able to speak that language, because that's going to be the barrier that gets you the CISO. Then if you want to go from a good CISO to a world-class CISO, that's where the public speaking component is going to come into play. So another great question is, how would you start writing a security strategy and program based on risk in a business where it was all based on tech categories? So what tech is very specific. So I'm assuming what you're talking about, Cedric, is you have a lot of this technology that's based on these very specific technical risks. What are the broad categories? What are the general categories of risk to your organization? I'll give you the one that I use. If you look at risk in an organization or threats and vulnerabilities, to me, they're really broken down in just a few categories: server-based, client-based, cloud-based, third-party based, or insider threat. If we really want to think about it, those are really going to be your main risks. Is somebody going to target a client? Is an individual going to click on an attachment or open up a doc in an email? Is somebody going to find a missing patch on a server and break in and exploit the system? But by the way, you could put cloud with server, right? I break them out because some clients have on-site and others, but really those are together. So it could be 4. Then you have third-party vendors, and then you have insider threats. Normally the insider threat, that's more of a people HR, so we take that off. If you combine cloud and servers, you really have 3 main categories. What is it going in after a client, after server, or after third party? So start with those broad categories, and then we can go from there. Any professional certifications? Once again, I'll go back to what I said earlier. If you can do the job and you can speak the language, you don't need degrees and you don't need certs. Now, do they help? Yes. Right? Do they make it a little easier? Yes. But are they going to be barriers? No. Right now, when you're talking a CISO, the one that companies do tend to look for is a CISSP. That is the one out there. Now, if you have a CISSP, I recommend you maintain it. But if you really want to become a CISO and you have more than 5+ years experience, I wouldn't necessarily spend the time studying to get your CISSP. I would spend the time reading business books. So if you tell me you're going to invest 200 hours in your career and you can spend that 200 hours passing the CISSP, or you can spend the 200 hours reading business books and speaking the language of business, I would do the business side every day of the week. So focus on the business language because that's where most people's weaknesses are. Right. I'm having such a good time. My team's coming in and they're like, dude, you only supposed to go for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes max. And I just realized I went for about almost 15 minutes. So my team's like freaking out, but I'm having a great time. We're going to do this each week. So I think I got to everyone's question. If I didn't get to your question, please join us next week. Remember, if you didn't listen to it, we just launched right before this our Life of a CISO podcast. So definitely want to catch you on that. Also, later today, I think like in an hour or two, or maybe in 40 minutes, I'm doing another CISO presentation on ISSA. I believe it's public. So if you just search on Google, ISSA, Dr. Eric Cole, CISO presentation, I believe that's at 11 o'clock East Coast today. So if you didn't get enough Eric, and if I was you, I probably got enough Eric. But if you want more Eric, you got more Eric coming to you. I'm going to be live again. Today is one of my busy live production days. So I'm going to be live again in about 40 minutes. So catch me then. Otherwise, catch me next week. Otherwise, catch me online. Thank you. I love spending time with you. And I'll see you all next week. Have an awesome week.